Gojo is a friendless bum who avoids the hoes to make sus cosplays for his dolls at home. But when the most popular cosplayer girl discovers his costume-making skills, she asks him to make cosplays for her and promises to repay him with naughty methods.
この辺でゴム外そっか。
Since he was little, Gojo fell in love with the Hina dolls crafted by his grandfather, Kaoru, and wanted to passionately make Hina dolls just like him. But when he shared his interest with his childhood friend, she called him a creep for liking girly things, which left him insecure about his passion. In the present, Gojo wakes up from that nightmare, still having the pain linger years later. That morning, he heads downstairs to help his grandpa with breakfast, and the old man asks Gojo if he has started expanding girls' creamy domains to prepare for the future. And Gojo, while embarrassed, assures him that he's clapping more bodies than Sukuna during the Shibuya incident. However, on his way to school, Gojo faces the painful truth that he's a lonely loser who can't make friends. Later, while zoning out in class, he thinks about how his passion for dolls isolates him, as he spends too much time focused on it. Suddenly, a blonde girl named Marin comes flying and accidentally hits her head on his desk. Her friends quickly run over to check on her, but she turns to Gojo and apologizes for the disturbance, while he's flustered that she even speaks to him. Later, Marin and her friends gossip about something that happened the day before, where some simp tried to rizz up Marin and mingle her melons, but when he mocked her love for anime, she roasted him, calling him a small pickle loser. Her friends question if she's too harsh, but Marin stands firm, saying that she can't stand people who make fun of others' interests. Hearing this conversation from nearby, Gojo can't help but relate. He holds his arm tightly, thinking how lucky Marin is to have people who accept her, unlike him. After school, Gojo stays behind alone to clean the classroom after the other students have left their cleaning assignments. While tidying up, the door opens and Marin walks in and starts helping him clean, which leaves him confused. Marin asks where everyone else went, and when she hears they all ditched their duties, she's clearly annoyed. Gojo says he doesn't mind, but Marin disagrees and tells him that he shouldn't let people walk all over him, but should express how he feels, leaving him stunned. A few days later, Gojo cuts his fingers while sewing, still thinking about Marin's words. Just then, he notices that the sewing machine isn't working anymore, so he comes up with a solution. The next day, after school, he borrows the home economics room's sewing machine and brings one of his dolls with him. Suddenly, Marin walks in, surprising him so badly that he almost drops his doll. He quickly dives to save it and gets ready to get mocked, but when he looks up, he sees Marin being amazed that Gojo knows how to sew and asks where he learns. So he tells her his family runs a Hina doll shop. Curious, Marin asks to see the doll he's holding, and when he hands it over, she compliments how beautiful it looks. Gojo is surprised, as no one has ever said something nice about his interests before. He tells her he can only make clothes, not dolls themselves, but when Marin hears that, she unbuttons her uniform, telling Gojo to turn around. He immediately obeys, confused about what kind of Johnny Sins scenario is going on. When she's ready, she presents herself in a simple black dress. Gojo asks about it, and she hands him a reference picture, explaining she's trying to recreate a costume. Gojo immediately sees everything wrong with it and gives her a harsh critique, calling her design trash. But when he notices Marin tearing up, he gets down on all fours and apologizes for being harsh. She assures him that she's not mad and explains that the dress is her attempt at cosplay, which to her is the ultimate way to show love for a character. That's when Marin gets an idea and asks Gojo if he can help her make cosplay outfits. Moved by her passion and remembering her words about accepting people's interests, Gojo agrees to help. Marin is thrilled and starts jumping around with joy, while Gojo watches, amazed that he's found a connection with someone like her. As they keep talking, Marin reveals the character she wants to cosplay, which is a character from a game where girls get creamed by dudes and make happy noises. Gojo asks Marin to repeat what she just said, and she proudly confirms she's a goon-loving degenerate who plays games where stepmom gets passed around. Marin fills him in that it's a dating sim about a guy who claps more girls than Genghis Khan's body count. And while Gojo tries his best to keep up, he's lost since he's never really played any games. He assumes she's messing with him until he sees the serious expression on her face. Marin starts gushing about her favorite character, Shizuku, and how she would like to become her. Gojo is stunned that a girl would even be into games like this. But Marin insists it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, as long as you can enjoy it behind a closed door. Her words remind Gojo of the time his childhood friend insulted him for liking girly stuff, and without hesitation, he agrees to help. They prepare to get started, and Marin whips out a book filled with instructions. He's amazed that she has a guidebook for her passion, but quickly realizes just how dumb she is that she's unable to follow the instructions. Then, Gojo tells her that before they begin, he'll need her measurements, but since it's already late, they agree to do it on Monday. However, the next day, the doorbell rings, and when Gojo opens the door, he's stunned to see Marin standing there. He asks how she found out where he lives, and she casually explains that she googled his name and then camped out in the bushes overnight. Gojo's clearly alarmed, but she distracts him with a cake and walks in like she owns the place. She heads straight to his room, and when she spots his brushes, she gets into a position that makes Gojo's slim gym want to turn itself into a fat gym, but he manages to quickly bury his creamy urges. Then, she tells him that they should start by taking her measurements, but Gojo turns beet red and suggests she find someone else. Explaining that the book says he needs to measure her in her underwear, Marin casually unbuttons her shirt to reveal she's wearing a swimsuit underneath, saying it's no big deal. Without much choice, Gojo takes a deep breath and begins with her head measurement, trying to keep his hands steady to avoid any accidental contact, and Marin agrees to keep her eyes closed to help him out. But when she suddenly opens them, Gojo yeets himself to the floor. Once he composes himself, he asks her to turn around to measure her shoulders. However, he gets flustered at the sight of her rice cakes and asks how she isn't embarrassed. Marin simply says she's focused on becoming Shizuku, and that means following the instructions exactly. After hearing that, Gojo slaps himself, apologizes for letting his mind wander, and decides to take things seriously. He takes all the basic measurements like a professional and writes them down. Then Marin asks him to measure her feet, saying she always has trouble finding the right fit. Gojo offers to get her a chair, but Marin jumps onto his bed and tells him it's the perfect height. Gojo panics, warning her that she's literally sitting on his discarded offspring, but she just lounges more comfortably. While he's still freaking out, she places her foot on his lap and tells him to get it over with. Gojo manages to finish the job, but Marin asks him to measure her bust. Gojo immediately says she should do that herself, but Marin complains it's hard to do accurately alone, then lifts her hair and tells him to do it. Reluctantly, Gojo leans in, close enough to hear her heartbeat, and starts sweating. To keep his mind from thinking of cheek clapping, he imagines getting his glizzy gobbled by your ugly exes and manages to get the measurement. Marin then says they still need to measure her bust point and inseam. Gojo imagines what that means and flat out refuses. Marin insists it's necessary to get the chest pattern right, but Gojo points out that he'd basically be aiming for a very specific target. Marin laughs at how embarrassed he is and decides to do it herself, but when she tells him that it's 7 inches, he can't help but imagine some other things he knows that could fit there.
What do you mean by that?
Then, Gojo gets ready to measure her inseam, and this time, he tells himself not to be flustered. But just as his hand brushes Marin, she blushes and squirms a little, feeling a tingle in her clam. Afterward, Gojo asks for visual references from the game so he can design the dress properly. She hands him 2 CDs and beams with excitement. Gojo tries to focus, but his eyes wander somewhere else, and he nearly paints his pants white. That night, Kaoru comes home to find Gojo glued to the game, looking for references. While Gojo is locked in for his costume project, Kaoru is surprised, thinking to himself how focused Gojo is to be taking notes to a game of girls getting creamed. That night, Gojo dreams that he's finally finished Marin's cosplay outfit and shows it to her. But then, Marin transforms into her character and begs him to bump bellies with her. Gojo jolts awake, and he realizes that he's wet, full of regret and shame. Embarrassed, he tells the Hina doll near his bed to look away so he can take care of creamy business. Later at school, Gojo dreads facing Marin, knowing she starred in his Mia Khalifa-themed dream. Just as he's overthinking, Marin walks down the hallway. Everyone turns to admire how pretty and popular she is. Gojo's thoughts drift to her in a swimsuit, and he struggles to control himself. He starts looking for a place to calm down, but Marin shows up and thanks him for helping her on Saturday. Gojo blushes hard, overwhelmed by his memories, but Marin just chats with him like usual. Just then, her friends show up out of nowhere, and they all chat him up, but when they see his facial reaction, they wonder if they should leave him alone since he looks nervous. Marin tries to keep things cool, but when she accidentally brushes his arm with her melons, it triggers the Twinkie to rise. Then, her friends remember they're late for class and leave, and Marin waves goodbye. Gojo feels relieved that Marin treats him normally even at school, but then hears nearby students gossiping, wondering if someone like Marin would ever date an ugly clown like him. In class, Marin excitedly runs up to Gojo, but he lies, says he's busy, and bolts faster than your girl when she sees that you're broke. For the rest of the day, Marin tries talking to him, but he keeps avoiding her until the school day ends, leaving her looking a bit down. As Gojo tries to leave campus, Marin finally catches up and asks if he wants to go shopping for cosplay materials. materials. But when people start staring like he's guilty of some crime, Gojo says he'll pass and runs away. He hides behind a fence and quietly apologizes for ditching her, only to realize Marin is right next to him. She tells him not to run in the first place. When she asks why he's been avoiding her, Gojo says they should talk when no one's around so people don't think they're close. Marin just laughs and says that they are friends, and that it's too late to hide that. Gojo's stunned. He mentions the dating rumors, but Marin doesn't care and even teases him about it. She grabs his hand and pulls him toward the store. They arrive at a cosplay shop, and Gojo shows her his multi-angle sketch of Shizuku's costume. Marin's impressed to see that he went to so much effort. They decide which parts to buy and which ones to make. First, they pick fabric for the dress, and while Marin suggests a glossy black one, Gojo explains that since Shizuku is more elegant than flashy, the material should be thicker. When he sees the price, he admits he didn't bring any cash, but Marin tells him not to worry and pulls out an envelope full of money, encouraging him to spend what he needs. Gojo hesitates but agrees, and they continue shopping. After getting fabric, Marin leads them to a wig shop, and Gojo is stunned by all the options and various wigs. Marin points him to the black wigs, but Gojo suggests dark purple to match Shizuku's character color. Marin's surprised by how much he knows, and she listens as he explains the wig needs to be long enough to give her the right hairstyle. Marin admits she always chooses the wrong things on her own and says she's glad he came with her. In that moment, Gojo's heart warms at the idea of being helpful to a real person. Then, they go to a lingerie store to buy garters and stockings. Gojo freezes, terrified that he might get too excited, but Marin reassures him that couples shop here all the time. She treats him by showing him her garter, but Gojo begs her to stop, saying he might explode if she keeps going. Later, they grab a bite to eat. A nearby woman watches them with envy, wishing she were as carefree as Marin and Gojo. But when Gojo starts talking about the creamy scenes in Marin's game, the entire restaurant turns to stare in horror, thinking that Gojo is a total freak. Then, Gojo offers to take all the cosplay materials home and begin making the pattern. He asks Marin if there's somewhere she plans to wear the costume, and she tells him about cosplay events where people take pictures and post them online. She shows him a girl called Sajina who cosplays characters but never actually goes to events. As she continues showing off the pictures, she notices Gojo isn't saying much. She jokingly asks if he doesn't find real girls attractive. Gojo explains that he's an only child, and the first time he saw a Hina doll, he was amazed that something so beautiful could exist. So ever since then, he's only used words like beautiful for things that are truly special to him. Suddenly, Marin spots a food stall selling a giant meat-wrapped rice ball. She buys it and starts devouring it with joy, while Gojo politely declines her offer to take a bite. The sight reminds him he still owes her for ramen. He tries to pay her back, but Marin says the food is her treat. She tells him how happy she is that someone actually played the game she recommended and paid attention to the details, and that alone makes her feel appreciated. Hearing that, Gojo is touched. Suddenly, Marin offers him a bite of the meat she's been eating. He refuses, realizing it would be an indirect kiss. Marin suddenly asks if Gojo thinks she's eating like a fat pig, and while he says that he doesn't, his face says otherwise. She quickly starts defending her eating, saying she'll still fit into the dress just fine. Gojo asks when the cosplay event is. Marin says the next one is in 2 weeks. Then, realizing she's about to miss her train, she sprints off, leaving Gojo panicking and worried about how little time they have left. On the train ride home, Gojo can't stop thinking about how he's going to finish Marin's dress in just 2 weeks. He remembers how excited Marin is to wear it, which pushes him to get started immediately. But deep down, he knows it still might not be enough time. When Gojo gets home, Kaoru notices he's back later than usual. Gojo apologizes, explaining he lost track of time while shopping with a friend, but Kaoru is just happy that Gojo has friends at all. But when Kaoru sees the stockings Gojo picked up, the shock knocks him to the ground, thinking his grandson is wearing them. Later, at the hospital, Gojo's cousin, Miori, rushes in, worried about Kaoru. Gojo assures her it's not serious, and just then, Kaoru is discharged. Miori suggests he stay at her place for 2 weeks to rest. Gojo agrees it's for the best and promises to bring some of Kaoru's clothes the next day. But Kaoru is more concerned about his painting brushes. On the drive to Miori's house, Gojo feels stressed with what he's facing. Some days later, Marin finds out why Gojo wasn't at school. When she sees how worried he seems, she tells him to let her know if he needs anything. Gojo thanks her and says he'll be fine, so Marin suggests they exchange contact info. As they walk back to class, Gojo starts to panic, realizing he hasn't touched the outfit in 2 days. Then Marin reminds him that midterms are next week, and Gojo can't believe he forgot. With school, studying, and visiting Kaoru, He wonders how he'll ever find time to finish the dress. Marin asks if he's okay, and though he says he is, he knows deep down he's in serious trouble. That evening, Gojo gets a phone call from a visitor who wants to tour the Hina doll shop, since it's the only chance they'll have. Gojo agrees to give the tour, even though it means sacrificing more of his time. After the call, he crouches down, overwhelmed, unsure of how to handle it all. That entire week, Gojo struggles to balance everything from visiting Kaoru to leading tours and working on Marin's outfit. At school, Marin notices how distant and serious he's become, but when she wants to talk to him, he rushes out before she gets the chance. That night, she walks to his house but sees it's dark and quiet. Assuming she's not at home, she walks away sadly to eat noodles alone. However, inside the house is a complete mess, and Gojo lies on the floor, completely drained. He hasn't slept, and the outfit is far from finished. He remembers asking Kaoru once why he always brought his brushes, and Kaoru said that going even one day without them would make him rusty. Gojo can't even remember the last time he touched his own brushes, and he starts to doubt himself, wondering if he really has what it takes to make Hina dolls like his grandpa. The unfinished dress adds to his frustration, and painful memories of being called a creep by a childhood friend come flooding back, and Gojo breaks down, crying. He then recalls asking Kaoru if he ever got tired of making dolls every day, even if he loved it. Kaoru said the reason he could push through hard days was because of his love for it. He even showed Gojo a photo album full of happy customers to remind him why he does what he does. Thinking about how happy Marin will be in the dress gives Gojo strength. He wipes his tears, ties on his headband, and gets back to work. Then, on the day before the event, Marin is amazed that Gojo actually finished the dress. Gojo tells her she'll be able to attend the event after all, but Marin reveals she hadn't even picked an event yet, and that she was waiting until he finished the outfit first. While Gojo is relieved that he didn't ruin any plans, Marin begins to cry, realizing that Gojo has been pushing himself so hard for her without ever saying anything. She apologizes for not knowing what he was going through, and Gojo says it's partly his fault, too, as he kept working without telling her how tough it was. As Marin wipes her tears, Gojo suggests she try on the dress so he can check the fit. Marin hesitates, pointing out how exhausted he looks, but Gojo insists that seeing her happy is all that matters. Marin smiles through her tears and promises to wear the heck out of the dress. Gojo helps comb back her hair and gets the wig ready. They discuss Shizuku's makeup style and plan how to recreate the look. Gojo pulls out some false eyelashes, and Marin teases him, asking if they belong to his hidden baby mama. Gojo explains they're for the Hina dolls, who require more grooming than people think. Gojo excitedly shares how skilled craftsmen can identify a doll's maker just by the eyebrows, and says that he hopes to be able to make dolls like his grandpa someday. Marin tells him she's sure he can, and Gojo's smile makes her heart skip a beat. They get back to the makeup, and Marin takes off her clothes to change into the costume. When she calls Gojo back in, he's stunned as she looks exactly like the dream version of Shizuku he once imagined. Gojo tells her she looks perfect, and Marin thanks him for making her dream a reality. Gojo asks Marin how the dress feels, and she mentions that while it fits, she can't really lift her arms. That's when Gojo realizes he forgot to consider how well she'd be able to move in it. Marin then gives her jiggle physics a curious bounce and is shocked at how well he got the proportions right. She's also surprised that the skirt is the perfect length to show her character's degeneracy. Marin gets so excited that she begs Gojo to take pictures of her. He agrees and starts snapping a few shots, but tells her they just look like Marin playing dress-up. Since she's cosplaying, he suggests she strike some poses that match her character. Marin agrees and chooses a gray background for the photos. She tries to capture Shizuku's gloomy expression, but keeps smiling because she's having so much fun and is having the time of her life. When she tries again, she manages to stay in character, which surprises Gojo. He compliments her and takes more pictures until she's satisfied. When she looks through the photos, she's thrilled and quickly sets up an account to post them. In that moment, she decides she does want to attend the cosplay event and invites Gojo to come with her. The next day, they arrive at the event, and Marin is blown away seeing all the cosplayers there, and is even more hyped seeing all the cosplayers she's a fan of. She thanks Gojo again for helping make her debut happen, but he's too distracted by the crowd to focus. Marin notices and asks what's wrong. Gojo admits he feels awkward being surrounded by so many girls, and feels like everyone's staring at him. Marin jokes that they're probably just looking at her amazing costume, but Gojo thinks it's because he's underdressed. To cheer him up, Marin playfully grabs her plots and wiggles them, then drags him into the main plaza where more cosplayers are taking their pictures. There, a random dude with a camera recognizes her as Shizuku and excitedly asks for a photo. Marin's thrilled with the attention and agrees. Gojo steps back to give her space, and she easily switches into character, posing gracefully for the camera. Afterward, she even takes a selfie with the photographer, who gets flustered when being that close to her. More photographers begin to line up to take her photo after seeing her top-notch cosplay. Gojo watches her enjoy the attention while people of all kinds walk around in costume. Guys dressed as girls, girls dressed as guys, and it hits him how free everyone is to express themselves as their favorite characters. As he turns back to Marin, he feels proud to have helped her get here. But then the realization sinks in, as now that he's kept his promise, he might not spend time with Marin like this again. He realizes that if Marin hadn't been so open and enthusiastic, he never would have ended up in situations like hanging out after school or having a girl in his room for the first time. He quietly appreciates every moment like a passing dream. Just then, Marin looks over and gives him a huge smile, which makes his heart skip a beat. She jogs over to him with enthusiasm and says that she's glad he didn't sneak off. But suddenly, she admits her costume is falling apart. Gojo asks what's wrong, and Marin confesses she wore 2 special bras to match Shizuku's figure, and now her melons are about to burst out. She also complains that the thick fabric is way too hot, and she's starting to overheat. Gojo realizes that it was his bad mistake, as he was the one who chose the heavier material. They head inside to cool down and stop on a stairwell. Marin says she can't make it to the changing room, and Gojo hands her a cooling patch and offers her a towel to wipe her sweat off. Marin unties her necktie, revealing the twin puppies all men crave, and he looks away, flustered. He checks online for advice and sees suggestions to remove heavy clothing to avoid heatstroke. Marin, unfazed, asks him to unzip the dress a little to help her cool down. Gojo hesitates, but seeing how uncomfortable she is, he locks the F in and pulls the zipper down slightly. Marin makes happy noises in relief, and Gojo turns redder than a tomato. She then asks Gojo to wipe her back, and Gojo does what she asks. But when she starts squealing with relief, he tells her to tone it down before someone thinks that Gojo Jr. is being created. She lifts her shorts to let the breeze in and assures him she's wearing actual shorts underneath, and Gojo promises to make changes to the dress later to fix the heat issue. Before they head out, Marin says she has one last thing to do. Back at the plaza, she finds the woman she'd spoken to earlier and apologizes for running off. She poses for a final round of photos, and the woman thanks her and starts snapping shots. But just then, the wind lifts Marin's skirt right as the flash goes off. The woman panics and promises to delete the image, but Marin only cares about getting one where she's looking at the camera. After the event, Marin and Gojo board the train home. Marin thanks him again for all his hard work, and Gojo thanks her for such an unforgettable day. He starts to look a little sad, thinking this might be the end of their time together. But then, to Gojo's surprise, Marin asks him who she should cosplay as next. Thinking it was just a one-time thing, Gojo asks him if Shizuku is not enough. Marin laughs and tells him she has a lot of favorite characters. As she rambles about them, Gojo starts to smile again, realizing that he will continue to hang out with her. Marin catches his expression and teases him about it. Gojo admits that he's just looking forward to working with her again. Marin grins and says she'll even buy him a mannequin to help out. She turns to show him an example of one, but sees that he's already half asleep after all the late nights he pulled off. Marin starts talking about how much fun she had, but Gojo's barely able to keep his eyes open. Suddenly, just before he dozes off, Gojo looks at Marin, seeing her in her Shizuku costume, and he tells her she is beautiful. Marin freezes, and she remembers that Gojo once said he only uses the word beautiful for things truly special to him. His words turn her face bright red as she realizes what he just said to her, all the while he's sleeping peacefully next to her. Later on, they head back to Gojo's house. Marin offers to wash the wig since she wore it, and Gojo reads the care instructions out loud while Marin follows each step. As he goes through the list, Marin realizes it's surprisingly easy. She turns to tell him, but freezes when she sees him, and he starts seeing him in a different light, now as a man who could expand her domain better than the other Gojo ever could. Meanwhile, Miori is driving Kaoru home, playfully teasing him about how he passed out. She jokes that it's normal for teenage boys like Gojo to start using girls' stockings for their gooning materials. When Kaoru finally walks into the house, to his shock, the first thing he sees is Gojo greeting him while holding a very revealing dress. followed by Marin, and Kaoru screams, thinking someone's walls were painted white while he was gone. Later, Kaoru apologizes for yelling, and Gojo assures him that they weren't doing anything weird, and Kaoru believes him. When the old man sees the dress, he compliments Gojo for his brilliant work, and Gojo humbly admits he still has a lot to improve. As the two of them start inspecting the dress more closely, Marin watches them quietly, and that's when it hits her that she's completely fallen in love with Gojo and wants him to have her children. She starts fidgeting from how cute he looks while chatting with his grandpa, until suddenly, her stomach betrays her with a loud grumble. Gojo asks if she's hungry, and Kaoru invites her to stay for dinner. That evening, Marin happily devours Gojo's cooking and praises him for being amazing in the kitchen. Gojo explains that he had to learn to cook since his parents passed away a long time ago, and Marin says she's in the same boat. She reveals that her mom has touched grass and down under from illness, and her dad had to move away for work, so she lives on her own. Concerned, Kaoru asks if she's eating well. Marin assures him that she is, and proves it by showing them a photo of an extremely bad plate of unhealthy food. Gojo looks mildly traumatized, while Kaoru asks if she's okay. Marin laughs and says she drinks milk and yogurt every day, but Kaoru insists she join them for meals more often, and she agrees to do so. After dinner, Gojo walks her to the station and apologizes for keeping her out late, but Marin assures him that she had a great time when they are about to split up. While blushing, Marin shyly waves him goodbye and runs off with a big smile. On the train ride home, Marin wonders why she feels so restless. She remembers when Gojo told his grandpa that they didn't do anything inappropriate, and starts to wonder what would happen if they did do something freaky. The next day, a girl dashes toward Kaoru's shop under the pouring rain to take shelter. When Kaoru sees her soaked outside, he assumes she must be one of Gojo's friends and invites her in. Later, Gojo gets home from school, and Kaoru tells him he's heading out and that a friend is waiting for him. Gojo's confused, as he only has one friend, and Marin is at work. He panics, thinking this could be a break-in, and rushes to check. When he opens the bathroom door, he finds a stranger without her plot armor. She slips on some water and falls, accidentally showing him what men go to war for. The sight reminds Gojo of when he once asked his grandpa why his Hina dolls didn't have hair, and Kaoru explained that the heads are made separately, which is why the dolls were as smooth as this mystery girl. After calming down, Gojo apologizes to the cardboard melon stranger and asks what she's doing there. She wants to know if he's the one who makes the costumes, and Gojo assumes she's talking about the Hina dolls' costumes. Gojo grabs a notebook and asks for her name and school. She introduces herself as Sajina, and Gojo is shocked to learn she's actually older than him. He says she can check out some costumes right away, and that excites Sajina. But when Gojo takes her into the Hina doll display room, Sajina is confused about what kind of BS Gojo is taking her to see. After looking around a bit more, she admits the clothes on the dolls are nice, but asks why he's showing her this. Gojo reminds her it's a Hina doll shop, but Sajina pulls out a photo of Marin and says she wants a cosplay outfit like that. Gojo says he doesn't take orders, but Sajina pulls out her secret weapon and threatens to report him to the feds for seeing her undressed unless he agrees to help. Suddenly, it clicks inside his head. Gojo realizes this is the same cosplayer Marin mentioned, the one who never goes to events. Gojo asks how she found his house, and Sajina explains that she saw Marin's cosplay post, stalked them around at the cosplay event, and tracked Gojo back to his home. Gojo quickly texts Marin about his guest, and she shows up moments later, fangirling over her cosplay idol hard. Marin bombards Sajina with compliments and questions, which terrifies Sajina, and when Gojo informs Marin that Sajina is a fan of her cosplay, Marin ascends into the ultimate happiness and throws even more compliments at Sajina. After calming down, Sajina asks Gojo to make her a Shin, the magical girl costume. Marin lights up and starts explaining all about the character and the anime she's from. Sajina is surprised, as she didn't expect Marin to know her stuff and initially thought Marin was only a hoe who wore cosplay for her OnlyFans audience. Gojo mentions that Marin loves Shin so much, she has her merch all over her bag. Sajina asks why Marin doesn't cosplay her, and Marin explains that her plots are too thick to pull off Shin's innocent look, and she'd never want to ruin a character she loves so much. Hearing that, Sajina realizes Marin is the kind of cosplayer she respects, and quickly apologizes in tears for judging her harshly. As Sajina gets ready to leave, she asks for Gojo's contact info, so she can send more details and her measurements. Then she casually tells Marin not to get the wrong idea, and assures her that she's not aiming for her baby daddy. Gojo immediately sets the record straight that they're not dating and flees in embarrassment. Sajina apologizes for the misunderstanding and gets confused when she sees how happy Marin is after hearing that Gojo is completely single. Marin snaps back to reality and asks Sajina if she'd like to cosplay together sometime. But Sajina quickly rejects her offer. When Gojo returns, he finds Marin excitedly trying to get Sajina to do a group cosplay with her. But Sajina says she's only into solo cosplay and already plans to rent a studio by herself. Marin pictures how cute Sajina will look in a studio and begs to come along. Sajina keeps saying no to her offers until Marin offers to split the studio fee. Gojo also offers to chip in, saying he has to be there anyway to help with Marin's makeup and eyelashes. Hearing this, Sajina realizes she could save money on the studio and use the extra cash on costumes instead, so she agrees. Marin celebrates when Sajina changed her mind, and Gojo says he'll watch the anime too to get references. Sajina asks if pictures and reference art aren't enough, but Gojo explains he likes knowing the characters personally. He adds that he had to watch Marin's X-rated game clips to get her costume right. When Gojo searches for where to watch the show, Marin offers to lend him her full DVD box set. Gojo's relieved to hear her offer until she tells him that it has over 100 episodes. The next day, Gojo tells his grandpa that he's going to Marin's place. Kaoru says not to worry about the shop, and then checks out the Hina doll head Gojo has painted. Worried, Gojo's unsure if it looks good since he hasn't practiced lately. But to his surprise, Kaoru says it's clear that he's improved skill-wise. He points out that Gojo's lines used to be stiff, but now they've softened. He guesses that hanging out with Marin has been good for him, especially since he's even done her makeup, and Kaoru advises him not to focus only on dolls if he wants to be a true craftsman. Later, Gojo gets to Marin's apartment and rings the bell a few times, wondering if he came too early. Suddenly, Marin opens the door in her pajamas, rushing to explain she overslept. Gojo, however, is too stunned by her melons to hear anything else, and remembers the 7 inches between her 2 pepperonis she once measured. When Marin sees the look on his face, she glances in the mirror, realizes that she's not wearing contacts, and closes the door to put in her contacts. After fixing her look, she lets Gojo in, and he hands her a bag of pudding. She's so distracted about Gojo seeing her without contacts that she doesn't even notice he's still frozen at the entrance. Because Gojo has never been to a friend's house before, especially not a girl's, he starts to get dizzy from his nerves. He thinks about just grabbing the DVDs and leaving. But Marin returns and suggests they watch a few episodes together. Gojo agrees, and she leads him to her room, which is so over the top with everything Shiozku that it helps calm his nerves. They sit down to watch, and Gojo takes notes on the details of the characters. Marin gets comfy and starts fangirling over her favorite ones. Then suddenly, it hits her that this feels like a home date. She realizes that without Kaoru around, it's just the two of them. She sneaks a glance at Gojo, sees that sweet, clueless look she loves, and realizes she's completely in love. She tries to stay calm but can't help melting inside. As she's stuck in her daydream, her stomach growls loudly. Gojo offers to go out and grab food, but Marin says she'll cook instead. Gojo gets excited to taste her cooking, but when he remembers how unhealthy her food is, he worries for his arteries. He offers to cook, but Marin insists on doing it this time. She quickly changes into an apron, then remembers she forgot her bra, but shrugs it off, hoping Gojo didn't notice, which he clearly does. She checks the fridge and decides to make omuris, excited to cook something cute and homemade. She chops up some onions, fries the rice, and is surprised it tastes great. But when she plates it up, it looks like something that gets people called an idiot sandwich. Embarrassed, she tells Gojo not to eat it, but he tries it and says it's really good. Marin asks if he's just being polite, but Gojo insists he's telling the truth, and that cheers her up. After lunch, they keep watching the anime. At one point, Gojo gets so emotional that he starts crying, so Marin passes him some tissues with a smile. Later, when Gojo gets home, he talks to Sajina about the outfit design. She's impressed by how much detail he included. She offers to send money for materials, but decides to wait until Gojo knows the exact cost. When he asks if she wants help with makeup or hair, Sajina says she'll handle it herself. Curious, Gojo asks how she changes the width of her eyelids in photos. To answer his question, Sajina switches to video chat and demonstrates by holding it up with a strip of tape. She explains how she uses it to adjust her eye shape, and Gojo realizes they could have used that technique technique on Marin as well. Sajina asks if he didn't already know, and Gojo explains it was his first cosplay project, which shocks her to know that the dress was his first costume attempt. She figures that's why the photos were taken on a phone, and offers him to use her high-grade camera next time. She says her younger sister, Shinju, takes all her cosplay photos and suggests that Gojo and Marin buy a camera too. Gojo asks if Shinju can teach him how to use one, and Sajina suggests they meet at a family restaurant near her house. Gojo agrees and thanks her before ending the call and immediately texts Marin about the meetup plans. Marin calls him right back, insisting on coming too, so she can learn. She starts imagining how cute Sajina's little sister must be, but when they arrive at the restaurant, they see a tall and thick girl next to Sajina. Gojo is stunned by her size and can't believe someone so young has such massive plots. Then, Marin scrolls through the photos Shinju just took and can't help but praise how amazing they look. Sajina chimes in, saying it's all thanks to Shinju, who not only takes her pictures but also came up with her cosplay name and made her account. Shinju explains she just wanted the world to see how adorable her sister is, so she created the account, and to her surprise, it blew up. But when random people started messaging her, she didn't know how to respond, so she just ignored everyone. Sajina says she doesn't care what strangers think, but Shinju admits that having so many followers makes her really happy. Marin smiles and says it's obvious how much Shinju loves her sister. And when Shinju expresses her agreement, Sajina blushes and tries to hide her face. Shinju then brings out their father's camera and mentions that photography is his hobby. Gojo asks what makes it better than a smartphone, and Shinju explains to him that a camera gives sharper pictures and more control over lighting and background, seeing how passionate Shinju is about it. Marin asks if she's ever thought about cosplaying too. Shinju freezes for a moment at Marin's question, but when Sajina repeats the question, she answers that she just enjoys taking pictures of her sister. Later, Marin tests out the camera and, after seeing how clear the photos look, decides she wants to buy one. Gojo searches for the prices online and nearly faints when he sees how cameras cost as much as a full weekend with your creamy sister. Sajina tells them it's even pricier with accessories, and Gojo instantly loses hope. He wonders how people at cosplay events afford this stuff, and Marin jokes that they'll stick to phones until she can save enough money. Sajina reminds them to be realistic and buy only what they can afford. After that, Sajina invites them to check out some studio options, and she suggests meeting at the train station that weekend. When the weekend arrives, they end up at an abandoned hospital that's been turned into a studio. Marin and Shinju are thrilled and dash inside, while Sajina, feeling scared, questions why she agreed to this in the first place. At the front, Gojo comments that the gloomy building is a great match for scenes from the anime, and Sajina agrees but is also kind of shocked that Gojo actually watched the entire show. When Marin and Shinju call out to them from inside, Gojo walks in but notices Sajina frozen at the door. He asks if she's scared or uncomfortable, but she brushes it off and walks in with purpose. Upstairs, Marin wonders if it's too dark in the hallway, but Shinju says the flash will take care of it. She then starts talking about camera settings, and Marin excitedly joins in. They notice clouds gathering outside and suggest they wrap up soon. As the rain begins, Gojo finds Sajina cooped up in a corner and asks if she wants to wait at the entrance, suspecting that she's scared. Sajina insists she's fine and says she wants to push through for her cosplay. Gojo is puzzled and asks why she's forcing herself so much, and instead of answering, Sajina responds by asking if he has any dreams. Gojo says he wants to be a Hina doll craftsman, and Sajina encourages him to make it happen, then quietly shares that she once dreamed of becoming a magical girl. She explains that she was obsessed with the idea of becoming a magical girl years ago, but eventually realized that they weren't real. However, when she found out that she could buy their costumes, she bought them, and while her first cosplay was a disaster, it still made her happy. From that moment on, she decided to chase the dream in her own way. Gojo asks why she chose him to make such an important costume, and Sajina admits she felt jealous after seeing Marin's photos in his creation. She adds that something about the outfit just hit her, and it was like love at first sight. That reminds Gojo of the first time he saw his grandpa's Hina dolls. He once expressed that they were the most beautiful things he'd ever seen, but Kaoru had told him they were meant to grab attention. When Gojo asked what that meant, Kaoru explained that dolls should make people feel love at first sight, and that moment inspired Gojo to follow in his grandfather's footsteps. Back in the present, Gojo starts crying, overwhelmed by the memory and Sajina's words. She panics a little, but Gojo grabs her hand and thanks her for the motivation, promising to do his best. However, because Sajina goes to an all-girls school, the hand-holding is too much for her, and she faints right there. A few days later, after the final exams wrap up, Marin suggests to Gojo that they go to the beach together. Gojo is surprised by the request, but finds himself standing on the sand not long after. He asks her if this is for a photoshoot, but Marin tells him no, and that it's just summer, they're free, and it's time for them to have fun. Gojo remembers how spontaneous Marin is and figures this is just another one of those moments. While eating her burger, Marin asks Gojo to feed her some fries, but before he can even grab them, a bird swoops in and steals her burger. They try moving to another spot, but the bird keeps following. Thinking fast, Gojo yeets the fries in the opposite direction to distract the bird, and they make a break for it, holding on to the last burger like it's their precious treasure. They eventually sit down to rest and share Gojo's burger. Marin offers him a sip of her bubble tea, but he turns it down, not wanting an indirect kiss. After a while, she decides to cool off and runs into the water to soak her feet, but when doing so, she accidentally shows Gojo her plot cover. Then she calls for him to join her, so he awkwardly removes his shoes, rolls up his pants, and steps into the ocean. He freaks out when his feet start sinking into the wet sand, and Marin laughs, asking him if it's his first time. Gojo admits that it is his first time, and explains that he spent so much time working with Hina dolls before that he never got to try stuff like this. But now that he's here, he understands why his grandpa wanted him to explore the world more. He then says that the scenery is beautiful, and Marin, totally charmed by his pure honesty, promises to take him to even more places for summer break. Just the two of them. When Gojo agrees, flustered, Marin says she'll grab a drink and runs off. As she walks away, she starts to freak out, hearing that Gojo agrees to more alone time with her, and she can't wait for summer break to come. Just then, she looks back at Gojo and sees him watching the waves with full aura, looking completely in awe. It moves her heart seeing him like this, and she takes a picture of him, thinking how hot he is. But suddenly, Gojo trips over nothing and falls face first into the ocean. A few days later, Marin and Gojo go up to his room to look through some new costume materials they just bought. Out of nowhere, Marin lifts her skirt, making Gojo flinch at her underwear, but she casually informs him that she's wearing a swimsuit. She reminds him about the night before when she sent him a picture wearing one and never got a reply, but Gojo refuses to reveal the reason, as the night before, he used those pictures for some creamy business. As Marin keeps showing off her swimsuit, Gojo asks for a minute to himself. Marin realizes what's happening and teases him about getting worked up. But Gojo snaps and tells her not to touch him unless she wants a second Shibuya incident. After they settle down, Marin helps Gojo paint a black jewel for her next costume, and she says she's happy she can finally be useful. It reminds Gojo of the first time someone made him feel that way. Then, Marin gets excited to try on her costume and starts undressing right there. Gojo instantly covers his eyes like he's under attack, but Marin suddenly realizes she's wearing the wrong melon cover and gets embarrassed, quickly covering up again. Later, Sajina tries on her own costume, and is impressed with how well Gojo made it. Gojo asks if anything needs fixing, and Sajina says the skirt could be puffier, but she'll just wear a tutu. She then puts on the cape and admires the detailed lining Gojo added. He warns her it's a thick material, but she says that's great for pictures. Marin, watching all this, wishes she knew more about costume design. She tries to give Gojo some professional feedback, but all she can manage are sounding like a complete noob in costume designs. Gojo offers to help with Marin's makeup and wig, and Sajina gives some tips so that the look better matches the character they're cosplaying. Gojo even pulls out some tape and shows how to tweak eyelids for cosplay. Marin gets excited to try it, and Sajina helps Gojo adjust the tape properly. When Marin looks in the mirror, she's shocked by the change and starts happily smacking Gojo like a kid full of joy, as she can't wait for the photoshoot. But then, it starts pouring outside, and Marin's mood drops. However, Sajina says that the gloomy weather actually fits the vibe of the characters better. She also compliments Marin's costume, and Marin gushes about how much she loves both their characters. She asks to take a photo together, and unlike before, this time, Sajina says yes. Marin is thrilled and posts it on her account. They suddenly realize that Shinju and Gojo are taking forever, but when the door finally opens, Marin and Sajina are stunned. It turns out that after Sajina fainted the day before, they ended the visit early and returned to the station. Gojo apologized for not realizing something was off, but Sajina told him she was fine. Marin says she has plans and bolts, leaving Gojo behind with the sisters. Shinju mentions she wants to check out some shops at the station, so Sajina leaves them alone. Gojo asks Shinju if she's ever secretly wanted to cosplay too, and that maybe she just couldn't say so in front of her sister. Shinju looks down, so Gojo apologizes and starts to walk away, but she stops him and says there is a character she'd like to try. She explains that, unlike her sister, who's petite and cute, she worries that her plump figure will make her look strange trying to pull off her favorite character, and that it might bother Sajina. Gojo shares his experience from the cosplay event, telling her that the best thing about cosplay is that anyone can become whoever they want. He encourages her to try, promising that her sister would never judge her. Shinju thanks him and says she wants to dress up as a character from the same anime as Marin and Sajina. Gojo starts picturing a cute red-haired character, but is surprised when she says it's actually a male character called Sama. He listens without judgment, and they decide Shinju will secretly join the shoot. Shinju says that her one issue is her humongous melons, which make dressing up tricky, and that she only gets a small allowance. Gojo realizes cosplay can get expensive, but he's determined to help. They go back to his house, and Gojo pulls out his school uniform, which happens to look like the one from the anime. Shinju asks to try it on, so Gojo waits outside, while his mind wanders, imagining what it would be like if Marin wore his clothes instead. When he returns, the buttons on his shirt are barely holding on to the precious twins, and one even pops off and flies past his head. Afterward, Gojo helps fix the shirt and thinks about how Hina dolls don't deal with this, but they also just wear kimonos. Just then, he gets an idea to wrap her plots to flatten them, and suggests trying it out. As she changes again, Gojo remembers how Marin doubled up on bras to enhance her assets and reflects on how committed these girls are to their roles. When he re-enters, Shinju says it's not working as her assets won't cooperate. Gojo also notices that her body type is more feminine than the character's lean build. He turns to the internet for help and finds a suggestion to use a bee holder. They look it up and are shocked to see the size she needs and how cheap it is. With the melon issue solved, Gojo takes her measurements, starting with the head, but her assets keep getting in the way, making the process awkward for him. A few days later, Gojo and Shinju meet again to cut her wig, and Shinju is impressed by how calm he is. Gojo admits he's actually scared of messing up, and she's relieved to hear that, as she always thought that she was the only one nervous. Gojo shares how there's someone in his class he really looks up to, and even though she seems perfect, there are still things she struggles with. He calls that person adorable, but quickly gets flustered and returns to the point, saying that everyone has things they're working through, even if they look confident. Shinju quietly takes that in, and then they continue with the wig and makeup, slowly transforming her into the character. Back in the photoshoot session, Marin and Sajina finally see her, and they can't stop ogling at how great she looks. Shinju is beaming with happiness as her sister praises her, and after some more gushing, the girls decide to take a group photo, officially marking Shinju's first step into the cosplay world. After that, Shinju grabs her camera and starts snapping photos of the girls non-stop. She even asks them to try a popular pose from the anime. But Sajina is more focused on how creepy the old building feels. But that changes fast when she sees Marin fully in character, thinking it's almost scary how accurate she is. The mood shifts when Marin breaks character and blushes, calling Sajina cute up close. Marin laughs, totally enjoying herself. And while Sajina knows she's not being very professional, she can't stop herself from getting flustered as well. After the shoot, Sajina quietly pulls Gojo aside to thank him for helping Shinju. She's pretty sure he paid for some of her sister's cosplay costs and promises to pay him back. She also admits she feels bad for not noticing Shinju wanted to cosplay, and it makes Sajina feel like she failed as a big sister. But Gojo gently tells her that talking about what you really love can be hard sometimes, and hearing that, Sajina realizes how kind Gojo really is. But she keeps those feelings to herself. Meanwhile, Marin's in full photoshoot mode, posing as her new character. Shinju gets excited after capturing the perfect shot. But right in the middle of it all, Marin's bee holder gives out and loses against her massive assets. Later on, Sajina and Shinju go through the photos and are amazed by how well Marin pulled off the look. Sajina stares at the pictures too and starts realizing her feelings might not just be about the outfit Gojo made. Shinju notices Sajina staring and asks if her cosplay came out weird. Sajina shakes her head and explains that she's actually jealous that Shinju got to dress as a character she herself could never pull off. It shocks Shinju to hear that, and she assures Sajina that she looks great in all her cosplays. But Sajina explains that she only picks characters she knows she can do justice to. While she doesn't dislike how she looks, sometimes she wonders what it would be like to try something different. That reminds Shinju of what Gojo once said, that everyone has their own struggles. So Shinju tells Sajina that she plans to get a job when she's older and save up to cosplay even more. Sajina gets excited to hear that from her sister and says she's looking forward to it. She even admits she prefers doing shoots with just her little sister. Shinju says the group cosplay was fun too, and Sagina looks at a picture with Gojo in the corner and quietly says that it was indeed fun. Back at home, Gojo's looking through the photos when Marin calls to express her happiness about them. She praises Gojo for how good the makeup turned out and asks if Shinju was wearing his uniform. When he says yes and explains they worked on it together, Marin suddenly realizes he was alone in his room with a girl who has way thicker plots than hers. Suddenly, Marin's voice goes quiet, while her soul feels a tremendous amount of jealousy. Some time later, summer break kicks off. Gojo is excited to finally work on both his dolls and Marin's next cosplay. This time, she picked a character named Veronica, a tan baddie who looks like she bites. They'd watched the anime together, and while Mary was ogling over Veronica's creamy caramel look, Gojo was wondering how to recreate her darker skin tone. Now, in the present, Gojo finishes the costume quickly since the design is simple. Just then, Marin shows up at his door, several shades darker after doing a reverse Michael Jackson. When Gojo asks what happened, she explains that she covered her head to toe in body foundation. She then asks to shower, so Gojo waits outside, holding out some of his clothes for her to change into afterward. When Marin comes out, she feels way better after cooling down. Gojo, meanwhile, is freaking out seeing that she's literally wearing his clothes and even smells like his soap. Then, Marin shows him her cosplay makeup, which looked like something your mom wore when she was getting her domain expanded. Gojo sees something peeking out of her bag, and Marin pulls out a stick on the wall wallpaper for changing backgrounds. However, she still hasn't found the fake fangs for the cosplay, and Gojo gives her some fake teeth he made using press-on nails. Marin tries them on and shows them off, and he's amazed at how real they look. Suddenly, Marin lifts her shirt to apply the foundation on her body, and Gojo gets a front row seat to things he was never meant to see. Marin notices his face turning red and worries he's overheating. She rushes to get water, slips, and hits her head, putting a stop to cosplay plans for the day. A few days later, Marin takes Gojo shopping with her. But instead of buying things for herself, this time, she wants to buy him some new clothes. She asks what style he likes, but he doesn't have an answer. Marin picks out a shirt and sends him to try it on. A store worker sees Marin waiting and assumes her boyfriend must be hot. But when he sees plain old Gojo step out, he hopes the guy can satisfy her in other ways than his looks. Marin keeps handing Gojo shirt after shirt, falling for every single one, thinking that he looks hot in every one of them, even though Gojo hates them all. Eventually, she picks out a simple t-shirt for herself and plans to try it on too, hoping they can match as a couple. She looks amazing in it, but Gojo still doesn't like it. Afterward, they grab ramen and keep shopping. In the end, Gojo doesn't buy anything, but Marin doesn't mind at all. She brings up doing the Veronica cosplay now that she's healed, but Gojo says she should do it on her own without him being involved. It takes Marin by surprise to hear that, and Marin asks why, thinking that Gojo doesn't want to be around her anymore. But suddenly, Gojo blurts out that he wouldn't survive seeing her in that outfit without painting his pants white. Marin finally gets it and punches Gojo for scaring her, as she thought something was seriously wrong. She promises to be more careful picking her next character and says she'll wear the Veronica costume at home, just so Gojo's hard work doesn't go to waste. They both continue walking, blushing at their earlier interaction. Then Marin suddenly pulls him close and asks if he'd like her to send some pictures of her in the outfit. Gojo folds hard on the spot, but Marin giggles and says she's just kidding. Afterward, Marin suggests they cool off somewhere since the heat is unbearable. So she and Gojo head to a manga cafe. As Marin happily talks about how convenient these places are, Gojo can't stop thinking about how small the room is and how close they're sitting. He asks if this is normal for manga cafes, and Marin casually says yes. She grabs a food menu, and when he sees the food option, it amazes Gojo with how unhealthy the food is. Then, Marin pulls out a manga about a succubus who's obsessed with the main character. She explains she loves characters with pigtails and would love to cosplay this one someday. Gojo notes that this character actually wears more clothes than Veronica, but Marin surprises him by saying she probably won't cosplay her. When Gojo asks why, she admits she doesn't think she's cute enough to pull off the pigtails. Gojo is stunned to hear Marin saying that and encourages her to try it anyway, especially since she likes the character so much. While flustered, Marin agrees to cosplay the succubus, mainly because Gojo asked her to. Gojo then asks what a succubus is, and Marin cheerfully explains they're mythical demons who visit people in their dreams and drain their energy by creaming them dry. He's concerned after hearing that, but she assures him it's not scary. She shows him a scene from the manga where the succubus just wants the guy to fall asleep so she can hang out with him, but ends up falling asleep herself. And the goofy tone of the story helps calm Gojo's nerves, making him realize it's a chill manga. Then, Marin goes to pick up the snacks she ordered, leaving Gojo to flip through the manga, but he quickly realizes while reading that the art is so simplified that he can't make out the full design of the outfit, and even though he's made costumes from incomplete references before, he admits that this one's really tricky. Afterward, Gojo says he wants to stop by the bookstore to find a better reference for the character. Later, he shows Kaoru his new purchase and feels proud of the progress he's making in both fashion and confidence. A few days later, Gojo finishes the costume, and Marin texts him, saying that she has booked a nearby studio for them to cosplay in. They meet outside, and though the place looks a bit off, Marin rushes in without hesitation. When they get to the room, Marin excitedly jumps around until she notices a suspicious, pickle-shaped massager. And that's when Gojo realizes that they're in a love hotel. Gojo asks why she didn't mention this earlier, and Marin sheepishly admits she saw a room with a big bed online that looked just like one from the manga, and it was so cheap she didn't think twice before booking, and she only realized what kind of place it was once they got there. Trying to stay calm, Gojo tells himself it's just a photo studio. But when he sees the massager, he can't help but think about all the possibilities that end with him expanding Marin's creamy domain. Marin reassures him by showing pictures of other cosplayers doing harmless shoots in similar places. When Gojo sees that they even serve desserts, he asks if this hotel has any. Marin tries to call room service, but Gojo stops her, pointing out that this really isn't a place for them to fool around in. Marin agrees it was a silly idea, but says she'll go change into her cosplay outfit since they're already here. Gojo waits nervously outside and turns on the TV, only to be startled by Johnny Sins clapping on screen, and he initially switches it off, so he can learn some tips and tricks from the Bald King himself. When Marin walks out in costume, he's amazed by how well the outfit turned out. She compliments the little details he added. Gojo explains he researched succubi to get inspiration, and while the design may not be completely accurate, he had fun creating his own version. Marin assures him that what makes cosplay fun is putting their own twist on it. Then, she randomly brings up an odd superstition about how keeping pickle protectors in their wallet is supposed to bring good luck. Gojo gets flustered, but Marin finds some in the room and jokes about sharing the luck. Then, Gojo does Marin's makeup and wig, and when she looks in the mirror, he compliments how much she resembles the character. They start the photoshoot with Marin posing on the bed and eating chocolates to match scenes from the manga, but Marin ends up eating all the chocolate. Then, they try to recreate the scene where the character sings a lullaby. But seeing that it looks half-cooked, Gojo says it would look better from the guy's perspective. So he lies on the bed and asks Marin to get on top of him for the shot. Marin worries that her fat cheeks might squish him, but Gojo says he'll be fine. As she climbs over him, Gojo manages to take the perfect photo. Marin is thrilled with the result, but just then, they hear loud happy noises from a girl getting clapped next door and are reminded of where they actually are. Embarrassed, Gojo quickly pulls away, all the while his rocket to fly up her cave, but they both end up tangled and face to face in the dark. But just as they are about to progress the plot, the phone rings, informing them that they've run out of time. Marin goes to get changed, overwhelmed by how close they are to bumping bellies. Afterward, they ride the elevator down, where a girl walks past them and reflects on how she was once in their position. Once Gojo gets home, he can't help but tickle his pickle to Marin after the experience he just had. Some night later, Gojo's phone buzzes with an urgent text from Marin, begging him for help, saying it is an emergency. At her apartment, he finds her slumped over her desk, surrounded by textbooks. She reveals that, as punishment, her dad just canceled their summer festival plan after finding out that she still has a mountain of homework. Marin expresses how much she wants to watch the fireworks, but Gojo reminds her she was buried in assignments anyway. Marin vents that she accepted so many modeling jobs that she totally forgot about school. Gojo asks what kind of job keeps her this busy, and when Marin hands him a glossy fashion magazine, Gojo sees her face is on the cover and is shocked to know that she's famous. But she laughs and says she isn't famous and she's only an amateur model. She reveals that a salon stylist put her in touch with an editor, and now she takes part-time shoots to save for a high-end camera. Gojo hardly recognizes her in professional makeup, and Marin grins, explaining that a real artist did her face that day. To relax, Marin suggests a horror movie. Gojo isn't sure, as scary films aren't his thing, but she insists it can't be that bad. 5 minutes into the film, she's glued to his arm, trembling, while Gojo is unfazed and studies the monster's costume details. When the credits roll, Gojo rewinds the film to inspect the makeup, which scares Marin, and she turns her face away to avoid watching it. After finishing most of her homework, Marin celebrates and is relieved that there's no math. But to her shock, Gojo reminds her about the worksheet drills, and she realizes that she left hers at school. They go to the campus, and after they get Marin's homework, on the walk home, Gojo invites Marin over for dinner. She cheers, happy for a break from frozen fried rice. Along the way, they pass the school pool. Marin kneels to peek at the water, and while Gojo warns her to be careful, she slips and falls in anyway. Gojo realizes that she can't swim, so Gojo acts fast and saves he, which ends with them both soaked. He asks how she handles beach trips with friends, and Marin shrugs, saying that she just eats, chats, and watches sunlight sparkle on the sea instead of swimming. She wonders if it's weird to love the ocean when she can't swim, but Gojo says he gets it, as it's just like how he loves Hina dolls, even though he can't craft them perfectly yet. Inspired, Marin proposes finding another festival that's still open tonight. Gojo reminds her of her homework, and she promises to finish it if he helps, so they can visit the festival. When evening falls, Gojo tells Kaoru he's heading to the festival, and Kaoru smiles, realizing that his grandson has finally made friends. When he arrives, the festival is packed, and Gojo worries he'll never find Marin, but she appears twirling in her beautiful yukata. He stares at her look, hypnotized, and Marin teases him, accusing him of being a passionate neck kisser. To her surprise, Gojo doesn't retort, but his reactions confirm it, and seeing him blush, Marin decides that the yukata was the right call and purposefully keeps her collar temptingly low so Gojo can see. Then, before they watch the fireworks, they wander through food stalls. Marin initially hunts only for a candied apple, but ends up stopping at every stand, and gets themselves a lot of food. Suddenly, an announcement says fireworks start soon, so they move to the plaza, and Gojo confesses to Marin that this will be the first time he watches fireworks at the festival. Then, the fireworks show starts, and for the first time in his life, Gojo sees bursts of color in the sky, thinking how pretty it is, but when he sees Marin beside him, he realizes that he's seeing a sight even more beautiful. Marin catches him staring, and suddenly sticks out her blue tongue she got from Candy, and they laugh together. Afterward, Marin's sandals caused painful scratches on her feet. Gojo offers to buy bandages, but she says it's simpler if he carries her. Then, he lifts her piggyback, and while Marin is more than happy, Gojo struggles to focus with the melons on his back. On their way home, they talk about favorite festival moments, and because of the lackluster ending to the day, Marin promises to come again with him next year. Gojo smiles, realizing that she still wants to be with him. Back home, Gojo readies for bed when his phone rings. Marin is whispering, saying that she's terrified after she watched the sequel to the horror movie, and now every creak in her apartment sounds like a ghost. She begs him to keep talking until she falls asleep. Gojo agrees, lying down on his bed with the phone on speaker. Marin chatters about all the summer adventures they squeezed in, from the beach to the cosplay shoots. His replies grow softer until he dozes off, and hearing his steady breathing, Marin smiles in the dark. Feeling a deep connection, Marin whispers to Gojo, telling him that she loves him. While the call is still ongoing, she curls under her blanket and drifts to sleep like she's lying right next to him, the man that she loves. If you watch this anime recap until the end, comment down, cosplay clapper. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video.